everybody. Thank you for joining me, Krista, with Imagine That Scrapbooks and Gifts for our week number 7 of ITTV Presents Try It Out Thursdays. And in today's little mini class, we're going to be making this beautiful card using a great line by Bo Bunny with a fabulous embossing technique on this stamped doily image here, as well as some fun ribbon by Mayars. But before we get started on this card, I need to pick a winner from last week's ITTV Presents Try It Out Thursdays. And our random name generator has chosen Miss Karen Howard. If you will please email us at imaginethatscrapbooks@yahoo.com to claim your prize. We'll make sure that you get your fabulous prize from last week's ITTV Presents. And if you want to be entered in for your chance to win a prize, make sure you comment on this week's video, either on Facebook or on YouTube, and then the winner will be announced next week. All right, let's go get started on this fabulous card. Okay, so with today's card, we're going to be working with a heat embossed image. We're going to be heat embossing this doily right here. Now, embossing just means to give it a raised edge, and there's two ways of embossing. There's dry embossing, which you can use with a stylus and a template, or a embossing folder and a machine. Or the second way is going to be heat embossing, which is what we're going to be doing right here. Now, to heat emboss, there's a couple of things that you can use, don't necessarily need, because you can heat emboss without using a stamp, but today we're going to be heat embossing with a stamp, embossing powder, and a watermark ink pad. Now, the two main things you need is an embossing powder and an ink pad. Now, you can emboss with a watermark ink pad like this one, or you can also use a pigment or an embossing ink pad. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our big doily stamp here, and we're going to ink it up. Now remember, you're going to apply the ink to the stamp and not squish the stamp into the ink. So we're just going to make sure that we get our entire stamp covered. And how you can tell your stamp is fully inked up is when it becomes glossy. Now the great thing with using a watermark ink or an embossing ink as opposed to any of the other ones is they give you a little bit more play time. So you're actually able to think about what you're going to do, turn it over, stamp it, and it's going to stay wet a little bit longer than a dye ink or even a pigment ink. Now the best ones to stamp with, like I said, are a watermark, an embossing, or a pigment. The ones you want to stay away from are going to be a solvent or a dye. So now we're going to open up our embossing powder. This is a really fun color by Wow Embossing. We're just going to sprinkle it onto our image. You can see that the embossing powder is only catching where there's ink. Now the one thing with embossing powders is you don't want to flick it, because if you do, you're just going to flick all that ink right, or the powder right back off. So now we have our covered image. Now we're just going to pour this right back into our jar. I like to put my embossing powder up right away, because if you don't, and you accidentally put your heat tool too close to it, you actually can heat set your embossing powder that's not in your jar. So we're just going to put that back in there and cover it up. Okay, so now to heat set this, you're going to want to use a heat tool. There are two different types of heat tools on the market that are the most common. The first one, for example, is going to be the Ranger Heat It Craft Tool. This is a diffused heat tool. This one I use more frequently than any of the others. It's a great tool. It does have a diffused heat, which means I can heat up my image and I can put my heat tool really close to my image and it's not going to hurt it. The other one on the market is called a bullnose. Now this is my Milwaukee bullnose. Again, it's a great tool. I don't normally recommend this one as frequently as I do my Ranger one, mostly for the purpose of the Ranger one you cannot burn your paper with. Believe me, I've tried. I've held it for longer than 20 minutes, almost touching my paper, cannot burn my paper. You can, however, burn your paper with a bullnose. So we do recommend the Ranger one for all craft levels. If you're a little bit more comfortable with heat embossing, then you can definitely use a bullnose. So these are the two main ones on the market. Now I'm going to go ahead and just use my bullnose since I have it right here. Now with doing a heat emboss, you're going to see that it's going to start to change. Right here where we can see it's going from that pink powder to a glossy pink. And that means my powder is melting. So I'm just going to move it around the doily until the whole thing is melted. Now we just need to do the center. All right, now our image is heat embossed. Oh, I forgot the edge there. Sorry, let's do that real quick. Okay, now there's a couple little tips and tricks. With using the bullnose, it does go pretty fast, so you're gonna kind of wanna move your hand at a slow rate that keeps you from burning your paper. With the Ranger Heat It tool, it's kind of the exact opposite. You're gonna wanna hold your heat tool in the same spot until it heats that entire area and is embossed, then you're gonna wanna move it. And the reason being is if you're moving it back and forth like this, because this is a diffused heat, you're actually causing cool air to go underneath the heat tool, which is cooling down your embossing powder just as fast as you're heating it up. Okay, so now that we have it embossed, we're going to fussy cut this doily. Now, to fussy cut, I love using my cutter bees, and fussy cut's just a really fancy word for silhouette cutting or cutting around. So what we're gonna do is just cut around our entire thing like this. Now you don't have to be precise. We're just gonna cut it like so. And for time purposes, I already have one cut, so you don't have to watch me cut for this video. Sorry, minor little setback there. I temporarily lost the doily. So now we're going to make our card. So we have here a pre-cut, pre-scored 5x7 card, which is my favorite size to work with. And we're going to just start layering our papers now. This is a really, really pretty line by Bo Bunny. So let's layer this here. All right, now we're gonna put the doily down. And we are going to work with this really fun ruffled trim by May Arts. And we're going to be using sticky lines. I absolutely love sticky lines. They're really easy to use, and they're just a big long line of glue. So we're going to pull it apart. We can decide what side it's coming off. There we go. Okay, and then we're going to trim off this side over here. And then we're going to pull off the back side. So now we just have this long piece of adhesive. Now this is a really pretty trim. Of course you can leave it as is, but I wanted it to kind of stretch out to give it that vintage lace look. So we're just going to set it right into the adhesive like that. All right, and we're going to trim off the extra. And then because this is a heavy trim, you can see it's curling our paper. So I'm going to be using red line tape. It's just a little bit stronger of an adhesive. All right. Okay, so we're going to peel off the backing of our red line tape and put down our brown strip. Okay. And I already have our boots with their foam dots on the back. I'll place those right about here. Alright, now I've got some Great Leaves and Flowers by Prima, and we're going to just use these little leftover pieces of our ribbon tape. Peel it apart. And I cut off the second one? Where did it go? All right, we'll just cut it off again. Oh, there it was on the card. Kind of blends in. Okay. Now we have our little leaves there. Now I'm going to just use some Zots to adhere the flowers. This really makes making my little flower bunch a little bit faster. There's the other one. All right, and there we go. Our fun embossed doily card. Well, I hope you have fun and enjoy this video. And don't forget to watch for additional samples as well as card dimensions at the end of this video. Also leave a comment on Facebook or on YouTube for your chance to win a prize. See you next week.